Hey guys, welcome back to The Composed Artist. I am your host, Stephanie Gaffney. Today's guest is Anton O'Hanlon. He has become a very good friend of mine. We've talked multiple times. But he is the creator, the founder of Artefex panels. I don't know if you've heard of Artefex, Artefex, but he creates aluminum backed painting surfaces. Very high quality, very heirloom quality archival type panels. I met him earlier this year at the Portrait Society of America's Art of the Portrait conference. And while I learned a lot from artists there who were hosting workshops and giving presentations, it was a wonderful experience for me as a working artist. But they also had a time and an area where vendors, like art supply vendors, could come and set up and sell what they with their products. And Anton had his Artefex booth set up, and so I was able to for the first time be introduced to Artefex, which is wild because he's been around for 12 years. But it was really nice to meet him. He wasn't just a sales rep. It was the owner, the founder of the product itself and the company. And he was very informative, and it was kind of shocking, some of the statistics that he showed me. He showed me the website, everything that he's got available information wise on the website, the difference in the different materials and the surfaces that you can use to create paintings. Anyway, just very fascinating. We talk about that during our episode today. So I don't want to delay anymore because what he is able to share is much more thorough than what I'm going to tell you now. So without further ado, let's hear from Anton O'Hanlon with Artefex Panels. Welcome to The Composed Artist, the podcast where we explore the intersection of artistry, entrepreneurship, and self-improvement and continue to pursue a more composed life. I'm your host, Stephanie, an artist specializing in live wedding painting, living in the vibrant and soulful city of New Orleans. Over the past decade, my job has taken me all over the world, meeting and creating art in front of thousands of people, and has allowed me to create a colorful life for myself and my family. Now, I help other artists build confidence, develop their techniques, and fall in love with the art of live wedding painting. I invite you to join us for inspiring stories of creative journeys, practical tips for running a successful art business, and honest conversations about the joys and challenges of running a studio and being a parent. This podcast is here to keep you company, keep you entertained, and is full of resources to help you on your journey to create a business that feeds your soul, makes an impact, and is insanely profitable. The Composed Artist is the podcast for the bold, creative, passionate, and genuine artist. Let's get started. Anton, thank you so much for coming and hang out with me today. It was really great to meet you at the Portrait Society's conference earlier this year. I can't believe it's been like 6 months already, and we've talked a few times. I got to try out your panels, and I was shocked that I had not heard of Artefex. You've been around for, what, 12 years? How long have you been around?
12 years now. Mm-hmm.
I feel like I've been living under a rock because I tried the panels, and, we're going to talk about how wonderful they are. But I just thought it was really great. You were very personable. You had a booth at the conference, and you were handing out samples left and right. Like, is that something that y'all do, is try to get artists to just try the samples first?
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, Stephanie, thank you so much for inviting me to talk with you as well. Absolutely. We try to give out as many samples as possible. Basically, what I found is that most artists, once they get an Artefex panel in their hands, they mostly like it. Now, it might not be for every project, but they at least can see the value of using it sometimes. So yeah, in the last, really, this is more or less 3 years, anybody that asks for a sample, I will give them a sample. And yeah, they can see what it looks like for themselves.
That's a great way to let them try the product without like any pressure. And honestly, that's a great that's a great selling technique because it was new for me. It's an aluminum panel with different surface coatings, which is helpful for artists because we all have different preferences for the surface that we like to paint on. And at first I was like, oh, this is a new thing, like I need to learn more about it. But it was such an easy decision to make. I bought some there from you. I've painted on them already. But it was really fun to learn a new type of surface. Do you ever get resistance from artists? Like I knew we talked for like 30 minutes at the conference. We've talked on the phone many times. I've tried different surface types, different panels. So I don't know. I feel like I'm taking my time to like adopt the panels, adopt the surface.
Sure.
Do you get like resistance from artists who've been using wooden panels or canvas, stretch canvas for years?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a couple common things that people say quite often. So one of them is they're looking for the bounce of the canvas.
Yeah.
And I do hear that a lot. And the way I see it is that most artists learn on canvas, so it's kind of like a feature of the canvas. And so because they learned it that way, they want to they have trouble moving to a hard surface. Now that's both with wooden panels and aluminum panels. So it's not just for aluminum, but that is a common one. Another thing that I hear a lot is most artists, once they find something they like, they don't want to switch.
Mm-hmm.
It's already hard to hone your technique, talk to your collectors, try to sell yourself, talk to galleries. There's all these things that you're doing, and switching something as important as a surface is a little daunting, And I hear that a lot. So most of the time, what happens is that artists hear about us. We build a relationship, we start talking, start figuring out what the problems are, because almost every artist has a problem that they've dealt with. Their canvas tore, or something warped, or there was a fire, or a flood, or something like that, right?
Yeah.
So there's usually some kind of story, but they might not think that there's a way to fix it, right? They might just think, oh, this just happens. This is just naturally what will happen to my painting surface. So it takes some time for them to adopt it. And another thing is, most artists, once they find something they like, they'll buy a lot of it. So they'll
Mm-hmm.
buy a whole, roll of canvas, or they'll buy a bunch of wooden panels, And so they'll call me, they'll say, I like this, I want to work with this, but I have to get through the rest of my stock,
Yeah.
till I can really dive into what you're doing. So that inevitably makes it that I usually talk to somebody many, many times before they start switching over, and they try something small, then they go bigger. And then, from that point, it's usually, they usually love it so much they don't really switch between different ones. So, having a lot of other materials is one. Another one is not wanting to switch in the middle of your process, right?
Yeah.
If you're making artwork that you're selling to others, it's you don't want to change something as important as your canvas. Maybe you will change your technique. Maybe you won't know how it changes in the middle of it. Maybe finishing it is going to look different, or
Yeah.
after you varnish, it's going to look different if it's a stretch canvas or an aluminum panel. So sometimes people will try a small panel, like our little 2x3 samples or the trial packs, and that really won't give them enough information to know if they're going to like it when they go to the 24x30, which is a size I know you like a lot,
Mm-hmm.
or 40x60 or something like that, because it is a little bit different painting on something really small or something really big. So we try to kind of make it as easy as possible by basically talking to artists, saying we don't make panels that we think that every artist should use. We look through for our panels through a very specific lens, and that lens is archival quality of panels. So we could prove that these panels will last longer than any other painting surface, but that might be the right solution for every problem, right? And I think you and I've talked about this before, but basically, if you're going to be shipping your artwork to Australia from the States, shipping a 40x60 panel is going to be very expensive, right?
Yes.
And so if you can't justify that expense to ship it, or if your collector doesn't want to pay that, maybe rolling up a stretch canvas is the only option you really have for that painting surface. So I think those are the biggest pushbacks, not knowing exactly if it's the right time to switch. The bounce of the canvas is the one I hear a lot. And then, yeah, if it's the right, if you can ship it, and maybe some other problems too, like I think another one I've heard quite often is thickness and how you present the painting.
Mm-hmm.
Do you usually frame your paintings, or do you usually present it in a different way?
I present the stretch canvas and then I recommend that they frame it so I can
Hmm.
offer, deeper stretcher bars If they want to frame it with or hang it without a frame, I'll paint the edges. But usually I'm like, this deserves a frame. This needs a frame. It'll just be, cherry icing on top of the cake. And so presenting a panel that's like an eighth of an inch thin, that I understand the value. I paint on panels, plein air all the time. Like I get that. And then we're going to talk about the heirloom quality and how you're able to prove how long lasting the paintings on your panels are. I'm really excited to talk about that. But like handing an aluminum panel with an image on it to a client, the acceptance of it from the clientele and the collectors, if it's confusing to them, or because they would have to either I would have to get it framed, which is expensive and
Hmm.
makes it very heavy,
Very much
especially
so.
to ship. But explaining that yes, you do still have to go get it framed, but it's better. Trust me. Like that's where I'm kind of on the cusp of educating my collectors. No, this is better. So that's my answer to your question. How I do that.
Yeah. Yeah, most
Mm-hmm.
definitely. Yeah, it is a little bit of an educational process, not just for the artists, but also for the collectors.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, maybe a little thicker actually looks more expensive, or if not more expensive, more traditional. Right.
Yes,
Most
correct.
artwork that we've seen for hundreds of years, right, has been put on stretch canvases now, and that's been the
Mm-hmm.
most popular. Right. So there is a quality to that it's something that's been proven for hundreds of years. Right. So
Mm-hmm.
something that people have been painting on for a long time. And yeah, so that kind of definitely makes sense that you're going to have to do a little bit more work on explaining that if you're switching an aluminum panel, in some ways it's actually more for the collector than yourself, even because you're going to
Oh
see the
yeah.
painting for a month, 2 months, however long you see it for. Hopefully less than that, right? So hopefully everything sells right away.
Yeah.
um, but if the collector then gets it, they get to see it for a lifetime, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they probably have thought that the artist has thought about that. They thought about warping, restretching
Mm-hmm.
canvases, cracking, what happens to paintings over time, and things like that.
Sure.
So um, yeah,
Yeah, that is something that it's a priority for artists, especially artists who've been working for a long time and artists who care about, the how long lasting the work is. I do wedding paintings and portraits, and so it has a heirloom quality to it.
hmm
That's how I communicate in like the sales process. It's like, okay, it's important and also really special to have this heirloom keepsake from your wedding so that you can pass it down generation to generation or whatever.
hmm
And so considering how you prepare the canvas, how you varnish, what paints you're using, the quality of the paints, the quality of the canvas itself, the stretcher bars, every detail of the product itself being considered when you compare your traditional stretch canvas to an aluminum panel that is virtually indestructible. It makes it makes me really stop and think like, ooh, this feels like a better product if heirloom quality hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years later, if that's a priority, if that's important. It's something certainly to be considered for sure. So that's something that I'm excited to offer for wedding clients in the future. So that's where we're at. I wanted
for
to
sure,
ask, you're so passionate about Artefex panels. It's your baby, it's your company, these are your products, so you're obviously you would care. But you really care about the artist experience. You really care about the impact that your products are making in the art world. You're not just trying to push a product that you came up with one day. This is really important to you. How did you get into this business? How did you start Artefex? And tell us that whole story, because I think it's fascinating how you came up with it and then how far you've come so far. Your website, which I know you've recently kind of revamped, feels like
hmm
Amazon for artist panels. Like it is so thorough. It was just a really well built website, and we could talk about that later. But how'd you get started with Artefex?
yeah. Thank you for those kind words. So I grew up with art materials and around artists my whole life. So when I was 9, my family started a company called Natural Pigments, and maybe some of your followers will know about Natural Pigments. But Natural Pigments started off basically importing pigments, natural historical pigments from around the world. So they started from like France and Italy and Russia and China. They were bringing in all these different kinds of pigments. And the whole goal was to try to understand why the modern pigments are different from traditional pigments that you would see 150 years ago, 200 years ago, and how that has changed the painting style and the tradition of painting. So that was the whole goal of what natural pigments was doing. And so basically what they found out was that most modern pigments that are used are synthetic. And they're really created for for car manufacturing and house paints, because that's 99% of pigments are used for those, because there's
Yeah.
lots of cars out there and lots of
Big
houses, right?
industry.
Big industry, exactly. And so the art industry, fine art industry using like paints and pigments is really a tiny, tiny percent, like 1% of the whole pigment market. So instead of going against the current, most art materials manufacturers that manufacture pigments and paints adopted those colors. And so because of that, to prove that, my dad had to do lots and lots of research, and that's his whole shtick. He does. I mean, every week he comes out with these articles explaining about what the difference is from modern to old paints and pigments. And what they found out was that there was a lot of issues with modern pigments in light fastness and also
Mhm.
the brittleness of the paint film they create. And mostly that's because modern paints really are designed to last 10 to 20 years, because that's how long your house paint will last, right? So it will
Yeah.
never last longer than that, or your car paint, right? So there's no reason for it to last much longer in terms of light fastness and composition. So that's the world I came from. That's basically the mission of natural pigments. And because of that, there was a lot of research that was being done on that. So through that process, for the first 10, 15 years of my life, I was deeply in that research process. And that took us not just from pigments, but to paints, binders, mediums, supports, everything to do with longevity of artwork. So through that research, we found out that most of problems that happen with paintings over time is due to supports that they paint on. So it's usually with expansion and contraction of supports. So most natural materials, especially ones that are not backed by anything like stretch canvas, will expand and contract when exposed to relative humidity or temperature changes. That expansion and contraction swells and contracts the paint film, right? As the paint film dries and gets harder, the surface underneath it is still flexible.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of the where I came from. So when I turned 18 and I was like, I'm never doing this again. I'm leaving. I tried to go. I went to college, went as far away as I could from my parents. And when I came back, I had some money and I wanted to invest in starting a company. And my thought process was to start an art materials store in my local area. Thankfully, that was not the direction I went in. And what I went in instead is kind of pulled back from what we were already doing. I
Mhm.
started another company called Artefex, because I already had all the research done for the company beforehand. And I kind of understood innately that that was an issue. And there was no analog in the market for that. So most companies, there was quite a bit of companies that made stretch canvases, lots of companies that made wood panels, but no company that was making aluminum panels. And so the first year was really doing a lot of testing. We talked to the Canadian Conservation Institute. We looked at the research that Smithsonian and a lot of other museums did. And they had information, and they were restoring a lot of old artworks onto aluminum panels. And that was
I was
kind of
gonna
the
ask,
genesis of,
yeah, I was gonna ask, how did you settle on aluminum for the surface? No, not the
yeah,
surface, but the frame of the panel, as opposed to
sh-
wood or any other, copper or any other sort of surface or material?
yeah, yeah, absolutely. So there's definitely a range of bad to good in terms of archival quality. At the very bottom is going to be your unbacked stretch canvas. And by unbacked, I mean just like a stretcher bar with a canvas that's tightened on there. There
Mhm.
are ways that you can protect that backing. There's backing systems that you can buy and stuff like that that will create an environment behind the canvas that will be better. But that's going to be your worst. Then you're going to get your like particle boards, a
Mm,
compressed wood like masonite or something like that.
yeah.
Even though some of those, they say that they use materials and they use resins that will not react to relative humidity, no matter what, over time, it will be compromised. And once it's compromised, there's no way to fix it because it's just a particle board. So it will start decomposing and over time absorbing moisture, which is what you don't want. But that's going to
Yeah.
be your second. Then you're going to get your plywoods and solid wood boards. Plywoods are made by having like a log, right? And then you have a big blade that comes up and it spins and it creates a thin piece of wood, and you lay them on top of each other to create plywood. Now that's a better solution because you can control the kind of wood you have and how you manufacture it. There's lots of different kinds of plywoods, but they're going to be a little better than particle boards because at least
Yeah.
it's a solid piece of wood. And then next is going to be your solid wood panels. That's a lot of like iconography, like like religious paintings, Catholic paintings, Orthodox, Greek Orthodox, Russian Orthodox paintings were put on like poplar boards, solid wood boards. They're heavy and they will warp, but it's a little bit more controlled because you can see the grain of the wood, and usually it'll warp where the wood where the rounds are on the wood panels. And you can try to protect it by putting crossbars and stuff like that in there. So that's your next best. The best that we found is going to be aluminum. And there's a couple reasons for that. Aluminum, it does not oxidize over time with moisture, right? So unlike irons and ferrous metals, aluminum won't do that over time. So it is not going to react to relative humidity in the same way that other metals will. Also, aluminum is very lightweight. So if you had like an iron plate as thick as what we had with aluminum, it would be very heavy. So
Yeah.
you'd have to balance out, how much you want it to last compared to if you can't move it around your studio or can't ship it or anything else like that.
Are the panels just a sheet of aluminum, or is there any sort of manipulation to make it more lightweight or thinner or something?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So what we actually use is a composite material panel. It's called ACM, aluminum composite
Mhm.
material. So that means that there's a polyethylene core in the middle, and then there's two aluminum veneers on each end of the panel. Because really what you want to do is you just want to paint on the aluminum, or at least have the aluminum as the backing. And it gives you a little bit of versatility to it and a lot less weight.
Mhm.
So you're dropping in weight, you're making it a lot more rigid because that polyethylene core is going to give it a lot more rigidity. And then on top of that, we'll put you either prime it or we put canvases on it. We have lots of different types that you can do, but lots of different things that go on top of it.
Mhm.
So the best way I like to talk about it is that the aluminum is the support that you paint on. It's not what you're painting on. So think of it like a stretcher bar. So we actually don't recommend painting directly on aluminum. We know that that's become a little bit more popular, and that's something we're trying to demystify and explain to artists that there really isn't good research about painting directly on aluminum. What
Mhm.
we're encouraging is to paint on top of whatever you're putting on top of aluminum. So either a primer or a canvas, which is even better. Because if you put a canvas, then it's reversible, right? So you can actually, what we do is we use a Biva glue, which is a heat activated archival pH neutral glue.
Mhm.
And that glue will allow you to reverse the process. So if, let's say, something happens to your painting, fire, a flood, FedEx, folds it in half or something like that, you can heat it up to 160 degrees and remove it off the panel and apply it to a new panel. So
Shut
it becomes
up.
completely reversible. Yeah, yeah. It's one of the features that we don't compromise on. It's kind of actually funny because the glue is the most expensive thing on our panels. It's per square inch. It's the most expensive thing, but
Wow.
we have lots of options that are much cheaper
Mhm.
available to us. But we decided to stick with that because of obviously the mission of what we're doing. So reversibility is much more important than how long it will last, because archival actually means easily reversible. If something happens to your painting or
Mhm.
if it needs to be restored, it's easy to remove and apply back to a new surface.
Yeah. Fellow entrepreneurs, listen up. Let's talk about protecting your business. We all know that having a solid contract is essential, but drafting them is daunting and can be very expensive. I'm an artist, I'm not a lawyer for a reason. That's where the legal page comes in. The legal page offers attorney drafted contract templates tailored for creatives and small business owners like you and me. Whether you're a photographer, an artist, a business coach, a designer, or an event planner, or what have you, they've got you covered. These templates are easy to customize and come with very clear instructions that include free future updates. That's huge. I was honored to be asked to review their live event artist contract, and it checks all the boxes for me. Don't leave your business vulnerable. Invest in peace of mind with the Legal Pages contract templates. So, if you're ready to get your business legally legit, head to the show notes and click the link to save 10% off any product in the shop, or use my code StephanieG10. Again, get your business legally legit with a Legal Page contract today. Yeah. So what research have you done? How on earth can you compare something that you've been working on for 12 years, which is a long time, but it's not 200 years? How can you compare that process and that product to something that's been hanging in a gallery or a museum for 200 years and the effects of time and humidity and stretching and warping and thinking, what technology do you use? How do you figure that out?
Absolutely. So there is already tests that have been done on these. Both the Smithsonian has done it, Canadian Conservation Institute has done it, and all the manufacturers of different aluminum composite panels, they will do their own in-house research. And most of it, it's mostly comprised of accelerated age testing.
Okay.
Now, this is how you test almost any product to give a warranty on how long it lasts.
Yeah.
Right. So, exterior versus interior, understanding if it's put into this environment or that environment. So a lot of these companies will already do their testing. But what the missing link for us is that maybe a wood company would do their research on wood panels. A stretch canvas company would do it on their panels or on their canvases. And aluminum composite panels would be done on their own research. But nobody did research where they would put all the materials together in the same environment to show in the same time what would happen to those same supports, right? So
they may have changed their
we,
tune had they done that, huh?
Right. Well, and a lot of times, most of these materials that we're using, and even companies that are using for wood panels, they're adopting from other industries, right? Our industry, art artists and art materials is very small compared to the wider world out there of wood panels or aluminum panels, right? You've probably heard in the news that copper and aluminum has tariffs on it, and it's a national security issue. It is greatly affecting me as well with that as a small business. But it's because that is used for lots and lots of different things in the economy. But for us, what we need to do is we need to put it all together, right? So that's what we did. So my first step was we got a humidity tent, we got an air conditioner, a dehumidifier, a humidifier, a controller that will control all those things at the same time. And what we did is we first took any kind of material we could think of: HDX, MDF, so medium density fiberboard, high density fiberboard, masonite, different particle boards, all kinds of stretch canvases, all kinds of different aluminum panels, all kinds of aluminum composite panels. And we left them all in the same environment for a week. Then after that week, we put them all in this humidity tent. And what we did is we increased the relative humidity to 90 and lowered it down to 20, and raised the temperature to 100, lowered the temperature down to 40.
Oh my gosh.
And we did that thousands of times over a span of 2 weeks.
Wow.
And we continuously still do that. So that test is never done. So we continuously do this test.
Yeah.
But basically, this won't happen to your paintings. Let's hope this won't happen to your paintings normally, right? But this we'll be able to extrapolate that data if you spend it over 20, 30, 40 years, because that is what will happen to your paintings over time. And so what we did is we took time-lapse videos of the process. The whole thing we have videos of the whole thing. Then we took out each piece and we weighed it from in the beginning and then every 2 days afterwards to see if there's absorbency of water and moisture into the surfaces. Then we would take pictures from the side and laying on a flat table, on a metal table, to see if there's physical examples of warping.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how we compiled all the data to understand what would happen over time. And so no one's ever done research like that. Like I said, they've done it on specific items, but you couldn't quite say that it would do it to all of them. And so basically what we found out is that it confirmed our prior biases basically. So
Yay.
stretch canvas was the worst. It absorbed a lot. It warped quite a bit.
Dang.
Now the benefit with stretch canvas is that you can re-stretch it, right? So
Mm-hmm.
you can take it off the stretcher bars and re-stretch it on a new panel. But you can imagine that expansion contraction will create tension on the paint film,
It'll
and that's
affect the
usually why you see.
painting. Yeah.
Mhm, exactly, and that's why you'll see cracks in paintings. A lot of it has
Mm-hmm.
to do with the surface. Wood panels also warped quite heavily. Masonite panels warped. MDF panels warped a lot. The one wood product that did not warp a lot was HDX, which is a very specialized concrete forming wood plywood panel.
Mm-hmm.
They're very heavy. They're 100
Mm-hmm.
pounds for a 4x8 foot
Oh my gosh.
panel.
Yeah.
So just to give you an idea, we sell a honeycomb panel at 4x8. It's about 19 pounds. So that wood panel is about 100 pounds. But they're used for very specialized purposes. They're made in very few places. I think Oregon is one of the few places that manufactures this still. And there's a couple companies in Oregon that make it. And it's usually used for concrete forming, for like construction, for foundations and things like that. Because
Wow.
obviously they really need to make sure that as cement puts pressure and water wicks, that it needs to not warp.
Yeah.
So they did come up with a product that, at least in 2 week spans, will not warp as a wood product. So I will give them credit for that. That is something that they did create. And the only downside to that is that it's very heavy and it's thick.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a inch thick uh, material. So quite thick and heavy, but it was resistant to moisture, at least compared to other wood materials.
Mm-hmm.
And then aluminum panels basically proved that no changes, no warping, there's no absorption of water at all. It looked exactly the same, 2 weeks later, going through all of those processes, as it did before. Um, Another test that we've done is we literally put different panels in water, and we submerged them
Yeah.
in water, and we left them there for a couple of days to see the difference, and how much water will get absorbed.
Yeah.
Obviously, the pushback I get with that is that, well, my paintings are never going to be in a submerged in water. Let's hope.
Well, I don't know if you're aware, but we're coming up on the anniversary of Hurricane Katrina down here in New Orleans, and that is something that happens to artwork, is that it ends up floating in the water every couple of years. As we get the humidity is out of this world for sure. So you were explaining the testing that was. I'm like, yeah, that sounds like an average Monday, 90% down. Like golly, it's miserable in the summer. But anyway, like hurricanes, any kind of water damage, any flooding, any issues with that, leaky roofs, the humidity alone, like we deal with that down here. And
Mm-hmm.
artists, sure, our work in our studios and things like that, work that's in progress, but our clients, like they're dealing with artwork that's being damaged, being discovered or found after the fact, damaged. The hurricane and the flooding that just happened in the Carolinas, flooding, like that, it's a problem. It does happen. So yeah, it's funny that may be an odd way to test, the absorbency and durability of a panel, but it does happen. So what did you discover?
Yeah, absolutely. And just to add a little bit to what you're saying, something that you could also do, especially if it's an expensive piece that you're buying or
Mhm.
collecting, something to consider is that you could talk to your insurance company and explain to them that insuring this thing is going to be much easier, because it is resistant to any kind of moisture. It's
Mhm.
going to look exactly the same. Yeah, I mean, we've had examples of all kinds of things, from fires to floods, to all kinds of people's basements. Even if you're not in Florida or in Louisiana or something like that, even if you're in an area, let's say like New York, I think we had a
Mhm.
customer whose studio was in the basement, and the water heater broke,
Mhm.
flooded the whole basement, and all their paintings were in there. And this is
Oh
30
god.
years worth of paintings that are
Yeah.
in the basement. Anyways, we discovered there's actually an interesting story that just happened. This was maybe under a year ago. I can't exactly remember when, but there was one of their customers who's recently switched to our panels. She ordered a big panel, and this was, I believe, in a collector's house that had two other paintings. And so
Mm-hmm.
this third painting was going to go in the same house, in the same, next to the other two paintings. And they were fairly large. I think they were like 48 by 60 or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
We are going to go next to them to complete the series. So two of them were going to be on stretch canvases, and one of them was going to be on one of our panels.
Uh-huh.
So she completed the painting. And then, of course, she was in the Carolinas. And unfortunately, the flooding happened in that area.
Oh, shoot.
And
Yeah.
I forgot what the hurricane was. Was that
It was
do you
like
remember what
Helene, I
hurricane that?
think. I
That's
think.
right, Helene. Yes. So during that flooding, so what she discovered, what her collector sent her, told her afterwards, was that everything was flooded. The two paintings that are stretch canvases were destroyed, but the one painting that was an Artefex panel was just floating right on top, never got damaged, and now they can still hang that one up.
Wow.
So I really hope that doesn't happen. Obviously, this is an extreme case, right? Let's just
Mm-hmm.
hope that this never happens to your artwork or to your collector's artwork. But
Mm-hmm.
it does happen sometimes, and this is a benefit of an aluminum panel to protect it.
Oh, yeah. That makes me very excited. It makes it. I'm looking around at all of the canvases in my studio, and I definitely want to use them. Because you've got like I buy in bulk because I do a lot of paintings, right? Like that's what artists do. We buy in bulk, and it's making me want to get through them and faster so that I can replace them with a better product. Um, all right, artist friends, if you've been wanting to try oil paints but don't know where to start, I've got the recommendation for you. Chris Fornatero, also known as Paint Coach on YouTube, has an incredible course called The Foundations of Oil Painting. And honestly, it's one of the best resources out there for mastering the basics. Now, I have my own course and mentorship program specifically for artists and live painters. And I'm super proud of the work that we do there. But I'll be the first to tell you, we don't go nearly as deep into the fundamentals of oil painting specifically as Chris Fornatero does in this course. He breaks down everything, not only the materials that you need and how to use them, but also value, color mixing, brushwork, and setting up your palette properly so that it clicks. Whether you're brand new to oils or you just want to strengthen your foundation, this is the course that I recommend. To check out the course and support the show, visit paintwithpaintcoach.com or go to my show notes and click the link there that I've provided. Get the skills, the confidence, and the solid foundation to make your best work yet. That's really fascinating that you've done all of this testing to get the evidence that you need, honestly, to really truly stand behind the product, which I really appreciate. And I know all the artists that buy your panels appreciates as well. Like we can trust you, which is great. So all of this information that you shared and more can be found on your website. Like you were so thorough. If anybody listening or watching on YouTube wants to do their own research and go to the website and see, like you took photos of paintings that were done on different panels and the effects of everything that you walk through. Like that's all that evidence is shared on the website, which I think is fabulous. So thank you for that. Is there any other information regarding the testing that you've done and any sort of like, here, we've made it easy for you to find this research that we've done, because your whole thing is the research that you do
Mhm.
on the art products, right? What else can we find on the website?
Yeah, a great page is the resource page on the website.
Mm-hmm. I'll link to that too.
And yeah, and on there's a video that I would encourage every artist to watch. It's from the Canadian Conservation Institute. We're not associated with them. We asked them if we could use this video, and they kindly said yes. And it shows a test that they did where they backlit a canvas and they increased the relative humidity and decreased it. Basically, what I did in the accelerated age testing,
Mm-hmm.
and they showed specifically where the cracks will happen, and so you can predict where the breaks are going to happen in your canvas and where you're going to start noticing cracks in 20 years, 30 years, could be 100 years. It really is hard to say when these things will happen because it
Yeah.
depends on where your paintings are stored, right? If it's next to a fireplace, if it's next to an open window, if it's in Louisiana or in Utah, right?
Mm-hmm.
Either one would be detrimental to your paintings, right? If you're somewhere very dry, like New Mexico or something, or if you're somewhere like in Florida, both are going to be an issue, and mostly an issue during the change over, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's not really, a lot of humidity isn't really an issue. A lot of dryness isn't really an issue. The issue is the fluctuation up and down, right? So,
Mm.
for instance, somewhere in Lake Louisiana or in Florida, air conditioners will reduce the relative humidity a lot
Mhm.
when it cools off, and the temperature, obviously. So it will reduce the relative humidity and temperature quite a bit. Then, if you open the window, or during the winter where it gets a little cooler, you open the window, right? The relative humidity jumps up,
Yeah.
right? And so that's affecting all the materials around you, especially especially the paintings that they're painted on. So I would encourage you to watch that Canadian Conservation Institute video. There's also another video on that same page, on the resource page. We did a video where I explained all the findings that I had here on the Vision X Live
Mhm.
conference. It's a couple years back. On there, there's a good video. It's about 2 hours long, so quite a bit to slog through. But you can maybe go to the very end. Towards the end of that video, we actually show charts, data, and and images of what happened to these paintings. In addition, there's a lot of videos of showing how to take care of paintings, how to
Yeah.
fix your Artefex panels if something happens there. So the resource page is a great place to start before you even buy a panel or before you even decide to switch. It's good to just to understand what everything's on there. There's videos of how to prime your own panels, how to remove canvases, how to fix yellowing panels.
Mhm.
Some artists notice that their canvases will yellow over time. Um, you know, it's actually every oil paint will yellow. So
Yeah.
your reds, your blues, your yellows will yellow, but you don't notice it in colors because it's not as drastic as in a white color. That's why your
Yes.
canvases will yellow over time. But it's very easy to fix, and on that page you'll see that there's a video explaining all about how you can easily in 24 hours get it back to stark white.
That's really insightful. In fact, I'm gonna make a note for the yellowing page, and then we'll link
Yeah.
to that because I know my listeners are going to be like, "Wait, what? There's a way to fix that?" God,
Yeah.
yeah, you've been so thorough to do so much research, um, all relating to the panels, of course, but really just you just put artists first. You have such an appreciation for and a dedication to the industry, which I really really appreciate. So thank you for doing all the research, for creating a product that will improve paintings and our customers who we care about, really their
Hmm.
experience with their paintings for years to come. It's such future forward thinking. And for someone trying to sell a product, it's easy to get hyper focused on the numbers right now, or
Hmm.
like surviving, earning, selling, whatever. And so you've done such a good job to create something that will benefit all of us for years to come. So thank you. So you did all of this research and you created the product, and now you've created a business. What happened next? 12 years ago or 10 years ago, did you start selling in big box stores? Did you try to get into local art supply shops here and there, or do you exclusively sell your products on your own website?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for all that too. I appreciate that. I'll just finish up on the website. So there is a lot of things to on the website to look at. So on average, an artist will spend 10.5 minutes on my website first time they came to my website. Which, to
Oh
give you
my
kind of
gosh.
context, yeah, on Google, an average website on the internet is about a minute and a half. So most people will spend 10.5 minutes on the Artefex website to get all the information.
Yeah.
Now, if I was really trying to sell a lot, I would say I really want to reduce that because you don't
Hmm.
want people spending 10.5 minutes doing all this research. But that's kind of the opposite of what we did with our website. And you kind of hit on that. We have lots and lots of information, lots of videos. There's tons of research to look into to make the decision for you clear that maybe it's not perfect every time to paint on an Artefex panel. Maybe I need to paint on something else.
Hmm.
And I get that question a lot from artists, especially ones that have been using, Artefex panels for 10 years, And they're like, gosh, I don't want to, I can't use an Artefex panel all the time, or I have a bunch of students who are just learning.
Yeah.
And an Artefex panel, the price point is quite a bit higher than going to Michael's and,
Hmm.
buying a stretch canvas. So I'm very open about that. I do not have a lower grade panel, right? I made a decision pretty early on to not make everything, right?
Yeah.
So I'm not trying to make a panel for everybody. And that's not to say I'm trying to create an exclusive club. I'm trying to make the best kind of most archival panel I can make. And that's why I settled aluminum. That's why we don't have stretch canvases. We don't have wood panels. I don't have like a pretty good panel and a really good panel. Every panel that we make is the same archival quality. The price differences are in the materials that go into it.
Hmm.
So, a cotton canvas was going to be less expensive than a linen canvas, then less expensive than the copper panel, which is very expensive
Hmm.
comparatively. So the price difference really is in the materials used, nothing to do with the quality of the panel. So basically, they're all the same. So on the website, you can definitely tell that there is a lot of information on there. It's a little overwhelming. I would encourage an artist to not just buy right away. I would
Yeah.
encourage you to do the research. I would encourage you to look at the research we've done, to look at other companies. There is some information out there, as limited as it is, and understand why you'd want to use an aluminum panel. And then come back to the website and you can find something. But to answer your question that you said, so 12 years ago, when I started the company, the art industry setup is that most artists buy from art stores. Most artists will go to an art store and find a material there. And so that was my initial reaction too. I thought that that's how we're going to be selling our panels as well. So I set up the whole company to do that. We were in partnership with Natural Pigments at the time, and we wanted to find partners around the country, mostly in the States, that would have a similar mission to what we have, which is
Hmm.
protecting artwork. Now, I tried that for about 4 years. And right at the same time, so this was 2014, 2013, 2014, 2015. Right at the same time, you might remember that Amazon was blowing up, right?
Yeah.
And Amazon was growing, it was getting big. And this was happening in every industry. So this is not just an art industry. But basically, what was happening is that the art material stores were getting squeezed by Amazon and other online retailers for price. And so the name of the game was to try to provide as cheap of a material as possible, as fast as possible, to buyers.
Yeah.
And so most art stores decided to go that direction. They didn't see another path forward. They thought that Amazon's selling much cheaper than we can sell. We have to bring our prices down as much as possible. What does that mean? So they mostly conglomerated. So at around that time, Utrecht, I don't know if you remember any of those stores.
Hmm.
Utrecht got bought out by Dick Blick.
Yeah.
And then a lot of other smaller stores were getting kind of conglomerated. And that was also happening, reflecting in the art materials industry. A lot of bigger distributors, a lot of bigger companies like Colart were buying up smaller companies as well. So everything was getting was kind of conglomerating into smaller and smaller pieces, getting larger and larger, to be able to control price and in that way. So we got into 72 stores around the country. So I was actively trying to find stores. So our website wasn't really filled out. We weren't really
Yeah.
selling online. So we were selling mostly through stores and through Natural Pigments at first. Um, but when I started talking to these art stores, I asked them what the long term plan is, because Amazon is losing money on every sale. So
Right.
unless you're willing to lose money on every sale, you're not going to be able to compete on price. So we need to figure out a different strategy for you to actually be able to provide a product for artists. Um, and so that message didn't resonate. Whether I was very
Hmm.
young at the time, I was in my early 20s, and and the company was young and everything else. My thought process was that stores need to create environments around them that created loyalty from
Hmm.
artists, and they wanted to learn, right? So it was an educational kind of slash art store slash something else, kind of a hangout space for artists, because most artists are lonely in their studios by themselves painting. They want to reach out to other artists. And so
Hmm.
that was my thought process. That didn't work. Most of them did not want to do that. So we pivoted, and that was kind of instrumental in where Artefex is now. Is that we decided that that wasn't the right direction for us.
Yeah.
And we didn't want to go to Amazon. And mostly the reason we didn't want to go to Amazon was that Amazon, the way they work is that they give you a large market, right? So you can sell very easily, very
Sure.
quickly. You can grow really quickly, but that growth is dependent on price and margins. So we would have to, at some point, inevitably, every company gets to a point where they would have to lower the quality of their products to be able to keep up with the margins that Amazon or any other. I mean, it's not just Amazon. There's lots of other ones, but
And
like
I
that.
mean,
But
production, like you're making these. That's
we
insane.
are.
Yeah.
We're making it in California. So everything's manufactured here in the States,
Yeah.
in California. So California is very hard to manufacture any material unless you're making something really high end, which is what we
Mhm.
do.
Mm.
And so that was kind of the decision. So we just decided, listen, this is not going to work. I don't want to come back in 5 years, and my company is based on protecting artwork. I think artwork made in Artefex panels will last longer than any other generation of artwork in the history of the world. And I don't want to have to come to a point where I'd have to compromise on the materials that I use to
Mhm.
try to keep up with the growth that I would have to have. Even if
Yeah.
we grew 3x or 4x, that growth would have been at some point the we would have to deal with this issue. So we kind of switched. So we didn't have a presence online. I knew a lot of artists, but we weren't really selling online. So our sales dropped by like 40% in a year because we very actively like, okay, this all this means is that we're gonna have to do this a lot slower,
Mm.
a lot more thoughtfully, and grow the business from a point of view that we're servicing artists, we're providing the highest quality panels that we can make, and over time that will grow naturally. And so that's kind of why we sell mostly through the website. In addition, what we specialize in is custom, right? So
Mhm.
we make everything up to 5 by 10 feet in a single panel. I have projects that are 20 foot by 20 foot, 15 by
It's
17 foot.
crazy. That's crazy.
So there's lots of other things that we do, like for murals and large public arts projects and stuff like
Mhm.
that. But that customization allows us to not have to worry about retailers, to not have to worry about big distributors who would have to have quotas, who would have to send to a certain amount of people. We can kind of control our own destiny in that way, and that has paid off quite a bit now, because now as we're growing, and we're growing rapidly now, it took us 6 7 years to get to this point, but we're in charge of all of our distribution. We're in charge of all of our production. Everything is here for us, and we can make decisions a little bit more clearly that would benefit the artists more than it will benefit the retailers specifically.
Yeah, I can 100% relate being a painter in the wedding industry, offering
Right.
such a very specific niche form of entertainment and product. I've been doing this for over 10 years, and there was a lot of education that went into, the idea of hiring a painter and other artists coming into the space. Wanting to be able to serve, but not knowing how or what exactly the product was or the process of, paint, just like such a niche, high end. It is very important, but there's a very small percentage of the population that would even be my ideal client, you know, and
Right.
it's not even everybody getting married. It's a portion of the people getting married in the world or whatever. So again, your decisions line up with your integrity and your goals for what you're trying to put out there. So that's fabulous. How do you, now that you're not in all these stores, 72 stores, I can't imagine trying to keep up with the supply and demand of, filling the shelves and keeping the products in all of those. Like it sounds like you almost fell into the pit of having an art supply store, which is what you had considered
Yes.
before. And
Yes.
that's what you were like, I don't want to do that. So I'm so glad that that's you rerouted. But how, now that you're not, on Amazon or like in these stores, how do you find
Yep.
your clientele? Like who are your favorite artists to work with and to sell to, and how do you spread the word now?
Yeah, absolutely. The way we wanted to grow was after that decision to not go
Hmm.
into stores, we kind of had that same thought process. We're like, how are we going to reach artists
Hmm.
if we're not going to be in front of their faces when they walk into a store? So basically, at the same time, obviously, social media was growing, and artists are on social media because this is how they're presenting their artwork a
Yeah.
lot too. So we wanted to be an artist facing company first. We wanted to partner with as many artists as possible. And at first, that looked as ambassadorships and featured artists. So every month, In the beginning, I think this was from 2019 to 2022, we had feature artists. Every month we would feature an artist that would have a unique style. They would talk about their story. They'd do an unboxing video and kind of explain why they would switch
Hmm.
to an Artefex panel or to aluminum panel, or in general, like what their process was, why they would choose an aluminum panel in this situation or choose another panel in another situation. So that was the first way that we really did it. What we found was because of the world we come from, which is natural pigments, and we went to the Port Society. We've been to Port Society 11 years in a row, which is where you and I met.
Yeah.
We went to certain conferences. A lot of them would have a similar type of artist,
Hmm.
which is atelier, like a student from an atelier, or a very specific traditional or hyperrealism was something that we kind of honed in quite a bit on. And so we had a lot of artists in that space. I started noticing that there's a need for these panels for lots of different kinds of artists: wedding painters, muralists, um, like even acrylic pour artists, artists who have a widely different needs, but they're all experiencing very similar problems. And most of them don't know that they're experiencing the problems. What I noticed is most artists have stories that of problems with their painting sports, but they think they can't fix it. So they adopt a new style or a technique to
Yeah.
overcome that. So for instance, one is sinking in. A lot of artists come to me and they say, okay, so I'm glazing, I'm painting over a span of a couple of weeks. I start with an underpainting. The underpainting will be pretty raw, like big swatches of dark colors or umbers or something like that. I come back the next day and it's all sinking in. So
Yeah.
the value has shifted to where now it's matte. You have to add a bunch of oil to it, and you do that over and over again throughout the painting. Right? It's just part of your process at this point. It's not
Sure.
even. It doesn't even seem like an issue. It's just something that you're doing. So there's little issues like that, or like restretching, right? They're like, oh, I always just restretch at the end of my painting session. I'll come in and I'll key in a little bit more of the stretch canvas. It's just part of what I do, right? We have to kind of do that. So a lot of times I find that that's kind of the issues that I'm dealing with. Is a lot of artists are kind of adopting new techniques to what they were already doing before.
Hmm.
Um, yeah. So
I
yeah,
mean, what you're saying though is interesting, and I want to kind of touch on that. It's so true that we notice some sort of like little issue with the process, and then we kind of work around it. It's like we're you know, you have a hole in the wall and you're just like patching, and oh well, I just add
yeah,
paint every day. I just spackle it every couple of years and then it's fine, and you're just kind of ignoring the the behind the scenes like the root of the problem. And so
yes,
having starting with a good panel, starting with a good support, and then I guess creating the painting and using a process that is archival, you're building the painting properly. Just knowing how to do that and starting off strong with a good support, would is something that we can all choose to do moving forward once we learn more about what on earth you're offering. So going back to the question, who are your favorite artists to work with, and how do you find them in ways like social media? You were talking about social media as well. How has
yeah.
that been helpful?
Yeah. And so once we finished the ambassadorship and the featured artist,
Mhm.
I noticed that everyone was kind of very similar in what we were presenting. It was always very polished. It was like a very finished video, the artist was presenting themselves in a way that's really kind of academic, I would say, in a way,
Mhm.
and high level, which is awesome. But one of the things I wanted to do is I wanted to reach out to a bunch of different kinds of artists
Yeah.
that were not just in that were doing different things that didn't look quite as polished, and that could say a story. And like I said earlier, every artist I've ever talked to has a story about something going wrong or
Yeah.
some way that they have to patch up something. And as an artist, you're always doing that anyways. Whenever you start a painting, halfway through there's going to be a hand somewhere, or there's going to be a chair somewhere you're going to have to hide, or you're going to have to redo something, right? It's all You're always solving issues. It's like a problem
Yes.
solving. Painting is problem solving
Yeah.
basically until the very end. And you still feel like you didn't really finish when at the end you're seeing all these issues and you're like, oh, okay, I guess it's done.
You gotta be
um
done someday.
yeah. Exactly. So yeah, that was kind of what we wanted to do, and so that's what we do with collaborations. So
Mm.
we're reaching out to hundreds and hundreds of artists all the time. And what we're basically looking for is something unique, a unique style, a unique process, unique look to the art, and just to see what their story is. So we basically just reach out and say, we want you to tell your story about your painting supports. We'll send you our panels. You can compare what kind of problems these panels will solve with that. And so because of that, now we're finding all these really unique artists that are dealing with issues that I might have not known about. Every week I'm learning about something new. They're like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm doing an acrylic pour art and I'm adding all these layers and I'm painting with something else on top of it. Then when I'm finished, this whole thing is like 50 pounds and every panel has warped that I'm doing. So then I put it in a frame to flatten it out.
Yeah.
Now the frame will, so there's all these workarounds that you're going around. So those are kind of the issues that we've been highlighting, and that's how we've been reaching artists, because
Mm-hmm.
really we want to build relationships with artists to help them talk to their collectors.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you're selling an artwork, and especially something as intimate as what you're doing,
Mm-hmm.
which is wedding painting, this is a memory that they want to memorialize for a long time. They're going to have
Yeah.
lots and lots of pictures, hundreds and hundreds of pictures. This is the one thing that they're going to probably look back on and want this thing to last, because they're going to take a million copies of that picture. It's all going to be digitized, right? But this,
Yeah.
they're going to have an actual physical thing that they can relate to that moment. And it will be encapsulated in time in that. That's what we want. We want to kind of be there between the collector and the artist and explain to them that you're not just buying an idea of an artwork, you're actually buying a physical thing that's going to be
Yeah.
there with you for a long time. You want that thing to look exactly the same, because you're going to change. You and your wife are going to look a lot different in
Yeah.
in 30, 40 years, but that thing is going to look exactly the same as if it's going to be put on something that lasts a long time. So
Mm-hmm.
so anyways, that's been the way that we've been reaching artists, basically slow, methodical, literally talking one on one. It's mostly me talking. The company's really small, so there's only 8 of us here. There's 6 of us that are here in the shop. So it's we're not a big company. So most of the time you're going to talk to for collaboration is going to be me. And so
Yeah.
it's one by one reaching artists, and then figuring out what their story is. Why do you paint? uh, what problems do you have? How can we solve those issues? And then kind of recording those, and then that's been fairly successful in the last couple of years to fuel our growth and to get out to more people.
Oh, absolutely. Like, especially you can see it on your website. You can also see it on your social media platforms, which I'm going to invite you to share in a minute. But you can see all of the artists that use the panels. They really love the panels. So it doesn't feel like, oh, this is just a product that I use in the studio. It is the panel. It is the surface that I use, and I use it every time. And here's why. And here's what the work
Yep.
looks like. And here's what the process looks like. And here's how it's, better than the rest or whatever. So
Yep.
hearing the testimonials from the artists as an artist who is following them and just likes their work like this, that is an easy way to sell the product. Just the it just makes sense. It just makes sense to
Yeah.
have artists try it out, which is why, going all the way back to what you said in the beginning, like sign up for some free samples so that you can try it,
Yep.
so that you
Yep.
can
Absolutely.
experience it, and then it's like, oh, wait a minute, this is actually really nice. This is a lot more lightweight than I thought. Oh, the tooth on this particular linen, which is what got me. I've done 2 paintings, one on a and these were the panels that I bought from you that were a little bit larger than the samples, are like 5x7 or 8x10 or
Yep.
something.
Hmm.
And so I was like, oh, well, if I'm going to sit down and do a painting with my limited time, my free time, I'm like, I'm going to do something a little bit bigger. So I bought the larger panels. I did one on a smooth lead prime surface and one on a Belgian linen. And um, I prefer the tooth of the linen, but that's just me.
Hmm.
But being able to do a painting on them, I was like, oh, this is nice. Oh, this is easy. And I created a reel on Instagram, and I'll actually pop it up here and kind of show a little bit of the clip of the painting I did of a Soroya. I did it like a master copy for fun, and so anybody watching the episode can watch it kind of come to life right now. But it was so easy to work on. It's easy for me to talk about and be like, oh yeah, this is great. This product is better. Like this is, so that sounds great. That sounds like a great way to get the word out. I wanted
Yeah.
to ask, You were you come from a family that has, a business, but also kind of a passion about, you had said natural pigments, and this is
Yes.
they're in this business. You wanted to kinda get out of that, but also you've created your own business surrounding research on an art material, so they go hand in hand. I think that's so funny, and you have a growing family as well. This is a left field kind of question, but are you thinking about maybe how fun it might be if your child kind of joins the family business, or it like is interested in the arts, or um, archival art materials, like this world that you live in? Are you thinking about kind of the legacy of what you're creating with Artifex?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, when I started the company, I didn't have a thought process of selling it. So even now, I want to own it for 30, 40 years. I'm not creating it to make it huge and sell it right away. I want to be
Mhm,
there in 30, 40 years, and I want to see artwork protected.
mhm,
It's the benefit of having a mission-based company. The way I look at it, and the way all of us here look at it, is that we protect artwork.
mhm,
Making panels is kind of secondary to that. It enables us to protect artwork, but that's the mission: is that artwork will be protected. If tomorrow there's a new panel that comes out that's going to be, I don't know, a wood panel that's very lightweight, that's going to be way better than aluminum, I'm going to switch everything to that. It's not
mhm,
going to be just the aluminum, right? So, which is why I don't have, our thought process is the mission, and however we get to that mission is, how we accomplish that mission is the only thing that matters. So I don't have a thought process of selling the business, and so with that, yes, my daughter is, she's 9 months old today, and yeah, she's here all the time with me. My wife is part of the business as well. Shelby is an intricate part of the business. She took a step back, obviously, for the
good, I
pregnancy,
hope
and
so.
yes, yes, yes. So she took a step back a little bit, but she's actually coming back the next month, and we have a lot of awesome plans for the future with the business there. But Zarina, that's my daughter's name. She's here. Yeah, she's here every day. She's usually the one that I put some orders in her hands, all the orders, and she hands it to Ronnie, our production manager. So every day I bring her over, and she brings it over there.
I think 9 months
And
old
we
is a
had
little young to be on the payroll. I
I'll
don't
have to
know, I'll
look
have
into
to look
that.
into
Yeah.
it, yeah. Because 'Cause I'm thinking I
uh,
have a 2, 4, and 6-year-old, and I'm like, "What could I trust them with task-wise?"
right, right. Yeah. So she's handing orders now. We have our dog Otis. He's 10 years old. He's been here with me in the shop every day. So he's
Mhm.
the panel inspector. He checks every panel before it goes out. So that's so yeah, definitely a full business, full family business.
Yeah.
Everyone's involved in some part of it. But yeah, I mean, I'm one of the benefits of what happened with me is that my dad is an artist, my
Mhm.
mom is an artist, my grandmother's an artist. I'm actually not an artist myself, but my whole family is full of artists. My dad started the business as an artist. He was actually very successful with other businesses. He started and sold a lot of businesses, but his original passion was an artist. So he that kind of that kind of made him go into the art materials
Mm.
world. And unfortunately, created an environment where he couldn't really paint or
Paint,
draw
yeah.
anymore, because now that's his baby, right? So now it's mostly just natural pigments, right?
Mhm.
So what I learned from him is that you can have a lot of passion for what you're doing, and as long as you have a good mission, which is what he has, you
Mhm.
will find that passion for that business. And that was something I watched my whole childhood. Owning a small business, as you know, is very stressful. It takes a lot out of you. There's moments where I work a lot. I've worked a lot less recently because of the baby, which is great.
Yeah.
But there is a lot of reward in that. And so I learned a lot from my parents. I watched how that worked. I rebelled at first because I was like, I'm never doing this again.
Yeah.
But then coming back after going to school for business, I realized there's something special about having a business that when people call you and they're like, I love this product so much, it enables me to do A, B, and C. And that's an amazing feeling. And that I watched because I would also answer the phones there for natural pigments for a little bit,
Yeah.
as when I was a little bit older. And that was kind of cool. And I noticed that that is not true for every company,
Right.
right? So especially other companies that are B2B, basically, because that's what I am. Every artist is a
Mhm.
business,
Right.
right? So every artist you're going to have to sell yourself. It's a very lonely business because very rarely do you get to be more than in an army of one, for
Yeah.
yourself. So it is a scary business to be part of because it's everything's on you.
Mhm.
But it is satisfying that I get to talk to artists, thousands of artists over my career now. I've talked to thousands and thousands of artists all about their artwork. I get to see it every day. I get to see what's being painted on my panels, and I
Yes.
do want to teach that to my daughter and show her that there is something very special about that. She doesn't have to be in my business, obviously.
Yeah.
I in the art materials industry, there's a lot of kids that are that take over their parents' businesses. It is a big part because it's such a passion project.
Yeah.
There's so much. It's such a niche product. There's so much passion goes into it that a lot of times the kids do get to take over the business. But
Mhm.
I was lucky that my parents were able to kind of instill in me and show me what that looks like, how hard that is, what it's going to take, and then I could pass that on to my daughter now.
Ugh, that's such a great story, man. I know your parents are very proud of you. I know your family is very proud of you. And yeah, there's honestly there's got to be a good feeling to being the guy, like yes, artists all around the world and definitely around the country use Artefex panels and they talk about Artefex panels, but they get them from Anton. Like it's got to be a good feeling to know to have that personal relationship with your artists, with your customers, and for those listening, like he'll send you a video that you can put on your invoices for your clients that explains a little bit of the history. It's personalized. He goes above and beyond. Anton goes above and beyond the call of duty for helping educate your customers, which is very helpful. That's really sweet. You that doesn't happen often, and so I appreciate that. Where can people follow along, like on social media? Where can they peruse the website? What's the website? Where can they purchase before they purchase? Get that little sample pack. Where can they find you?
Yeah, absolutely. I would start with just our Instagram. If you go to Artefex Art at Artefex Art, any of the posts, just comment try a panel. We'll send you a free panel. So very simple. There's no strings attached, nothing like that. You can absolutely go ahead and try to get a free panel that way. That would be a great way to do it. I would also encourage you, any of our collaborators, any of our ambassadors, I would go to their page. A lot of them talk about our panels. This won't be an endorsement for me. This will be an endorsement from a fellow artist. I think that's a great way to start too. Just kind of see
Mhm.
who else is using what they're using, and we're very open about that. Like I said, I don't want you to pretend like you're using artifacts all the time if it doesn't make sense for certain paintings. And I actually don't even think that's the way. I think there is a
Mhm.
place for a wooden panel. I think there's a place for a stretch canvas. If you're doing a study, if you're just starting and learning, you might not want to get something that's expensive and
Mhm.
all that pressure of like, oh, I have to perform on this one panel because this thing cost me so much money, right? Sometimes that might not be the right choice. That might actually dissuade you from painting, and I don't want
Mhm.
you to do that. I want you to paint as much as possible. So I would encourage you to kind of understand why you'd want to use a certain panel for certain reasons, if this makes sense, and then talk to your collectors. I've talked to hundreds of collectors. If you ask them how long you want your artwork to last, there's never like, 5 years or 10 years. It's always as long as possible.
Yeah.
Right. So if you ask your collectors before they buy, like, by the way, how long do you think this thing will last? That should be your first question. And then ask, how long would you like it to last?
Mhm.
The answer is always going to be the same. It's going to be as long as possible. So that might kind of encourage you to understand that why you'd want to use certain materials for certain on certain projects, especially if it's something that's like memorializing, a wedding, memorializing, a moment in time that
Yeah.
or something that's very special to them, just in general. So I'll start with social media. Artefex.biz is our website. There's I would start with a resource page if you're if you like to read a lot about the products and read a lot about the research. It's a little bit dense, but you can definitely go in there and check it out. Check out the blog. There's lots of information on there. Articles are kind of big, but you can check them out there. So artifex.biz is going to be the other place that I would encourage you to go. I'm going to give you two other websites that I would encourage you to check out. One of them is paintingbestpractices.com and Painting Best Practices Facebook page.
Mhm.
Now, Painting Best Practices Facebook page is a free Facebook page. You can go on there. It has restoration artists, conservation artists. It has I'm on there. Lots of other companies on there. I think Ampersand's on there. I think Gamblin is on there. Lots of different companies, manufacturers, and Golden and Just Paint. Those guys are on there. And that website and that Facebook page is there just if you have any questions about that. You can ask all these resources about any paint failures or anything that's happening with your painting supports.
Yeah.
So it's a really good resource where you don't want to get something biased from my website or something else like that. You can go on there. There's lots of other companies on there and lots of artists on there. They'll talk about how they solve the different issues, torn canvases, warping panels, how to varnish something, paint failures, all those kind of things. So I'd encourage you to go Painting Best Practices. Very easy to remember both the website and the page. And then also naturalpigments.com. I'll plug my parents' company there. I would check them out. They do sell my products, but really what I would encourage there is to go to their articles page. And they have thousands of articles on understanding your paintings.
Mm.
So not just supports, I'm talking mediums, grounds, varnishing, everything from a scientific point of view. Everything's done on testing, and it conglomerates a lot of different articles on there. So you can start with Artefex with the support because that's going to protect your artwork for generations. Just changing that one thing, but
Yeah.
there's lots of other ways of looking at the artwork. Imagine your artwork is like a house. Okay, my Artefex panel is your foundation. Then your ground is going to be like your sticks, that
Hmm.
you're gonna put up. Then you're going to have your sheetrock, which is going to be like your paints, right? Then you're going to have a roof, and your outside paint is going to be like your varnishing, right? So there's your painting's like a house, right? So it needs to be built on a strong foundation, but there's all these other layers that are on top of it because you're
Hmm.
mixing all these different materials together. You're not thinking about it, but you're mixing all these different materials together when you're painting. And so it's going to be good to know like what you're putting on top of each other. Is this the best practice? And is this the best way for me to protect this painting for long term? And so naturalpigments.com, painting best practices, artifex.biz. Those are the ones.
Well, there you go. If the quality of the painting that you're putting out into the world and selling, if the paintings that are attached to your name and reputation matter, if the quality matters, if you're in a position to where you can invest more in high quality materials like your panels, your paints, your grounds, your varnishes, because it's not, like Anton said, it's not for everybody at every stage of their business. But once you get to the point to where it makes sense and it aligns with what your mission is for your business, um, check out Artefex. I recommend them. Obviously, I've used them and I can't wait to use larger panels moving forward. Very giddy about that after I have the baby, because I'm about to have a baby and I'm about to, you're going to not see me for a minute. And then I'll come back kicking and swinging with Artefex panels. Thank you so much for coming and hang out with me. Every time we talk on the phone or on a Zoom call, I feel like I learned so much. It's like a mini educational series. You're very wise. So thank you for sharing that with me and my audience today, Anton. Appreciate you.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolute pleasure. I was looking forward to this conversation. I do feel the same way every time we talk. First of all, it goes really, really fast. And then we look at the clock and it's
Yeah.
taken way longer than either one of us thought that it's going to be. So I
I
appreciate that.
know. Maybe we'll break this one into two parts, but I don't know. I could sit down and listen. This would go by real fast for me as a listener. I would just sit down and paint or pop this one in the car and just consume it all in one go. So, but thank you so much again for your time today. Have a wonderful rest of your week, and I can't wait to talk to you soon about our next project together.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
All right. Thanks, Anton. Bye. Thank you for tuning in and joining us on this journey of artistic exploration, entrepreneurial growth, and personal development. Remember, you have the power to create a life that is both fulfilled and balanced. If you enjoyed today's podcast, please subscribe to The Composed Artist on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. And don't forget to leave us a review. Your feedback means the world to us and helps us reach more creatives like you. Until next time, keep creating, keep dreaming, and keep pursuing that composed life. You got this. I just noticed my easel sticking up out the top of my head. I've been recording this podcast for an hour and a half. And you're going to see this easel, this stick sticking out the top of my head, right in the middle. Right in the middle. That's fun.